I'm Matt Friend. I'm 36 years old. I had brain surgery in April of 2021 because of hydrocephalus. Right before the incident, I was living in Portland, Maine, and I was a normal functioning person. I was going to the gym often, I was dating, I was riding my bike, and doing all the things, the normal things that you would expect someone my age to be doing. It was probably early April, and I was experiencing really bad headaches and pain in my head. I started calling at work because I couldn't see straight, and I'd been going to a double vision specialist because my vision was declining. He asked me to get a scan just to rule out any neurological issues, and I got it, and they didn't see any issue, so I mentally kind of ruled that out. It started getting really bad in the beginning of April, and my parents, my father and my stepmother, they lived about an hour and a half away from me, and they were begging me to come get me, to let them come get me, and I just kept saying, no, I'm fine. And after calling out of work, for a week, I was like, all right, you can come get me. And it was in the beginning of COVID, so no one knew what was happening with that, and my parents thought that it could possibly be COVID, and my stepmom came to pick me up, and when she did, she brought me to get a COVID test. That was negative, and then we went back to my apartment to regroup, and she decided that she was going to take me home to their house in Boston. So she pulled the car up. When I went outside to walk from my building to her car, I fell, and I was laying on the street, and I remember looking up at her and seeing the fear on her face, because she didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. No one did. So she took me back to her house in Boston. I was there for 1 or 2 nights, and during the second night, I was taking an Epsom salt bath. And the pain started moving down from my head to my neck and my back. And I was like, what is going on here? Finally, my stepmom came downstairs, and she said to me, do you want to go to the hospital? And I don't know what provoked me to say yes, but I did say yes, thank God. And they did a scan, and they saw the issue immediately. And then they called an ambulance and transferred me to a bigger hospital that was able to deal with my issue. And that was pretty much the beginning of my journey. When I got to that hospital, walking from the car to the hospital, that was the last time I've ever walked without a walker. I was telling them my symptoms. They did a CAT scan and immediately saw the issue. And then they transferred me to a bigger hospital that had a neurology department. When they did this scan, they saw a bunch of fluid that was built up in my brain, and that's what was causing the headaches and the pain in my head. And then when we got to a bigger hospital, they were better able to explain it to me. And it was because I had a blockage on my brainstem, and that was blocking the cerebral spinal fluid from being reabsorbed on into my spine. And it was just building up in my brain. And that's why I was having all the headaches and pain in my head. When I went to the hospital in Boston, the smaller one, and they said what the issue was. I think I blacked out, or I reversed that from my memory. But I remember going into the ambulance and calling out for my stepmom and asking if I was gonna die, because I wasn't sure. There was a big part of me that thought I was, and I was just very scared, and my mom, it sounds a little weird, but my mom wasn't there, so I felt scared, and I don't think anyone in my family knew that it was an issue. Well, they knew it was an issue after, but no one was prepared for any of this. When I got the diagnosis and I was told that I had to have brain surgery, they might have told me the possible outcomes of the surgery, but I don't remember. I'm sure they told it to my family, and I remember my mom telling me that I'm going to have to work really hard after my surgery, but of course at that time didn't even register. All the doctors told me is that every brain heals differently, and I used to think that was a very convenient thing to say. The surgery lasted about 9 hours. I was on another planet. I had no idea what to expect, but the emotion when I got the surgery was I don't want to be so incapacitated that I can't express my feelings. It was very odd. It's very hard to explain what I was feeling the morning of. They were telling me that I was gonna live, but there was no guarantees. I just had to have the utmost faith in my surgeon and kind of leave the rest up to God. Before I went into surgery, I was asked who I wanted to be in the room when I woke up. And I remember I said my dad. When I woke up from surgery, he was right next to me, and that was comforting, but it was for 30 plus years, I was used to speaking a certain way and walking a certain way and whatever. And when I woke up, everything changed. When I first got out of surgery, it was very hard to get anything out of my mouth. It was very, very strange. I had to relearn everything. One of the things I had to relearn was swallowing. I think I stood up for the first time about 2 weeks after my surgery. The doctors wanted me to start physical therapy as soon as possible, because they were saying that the most improvement happens within 6 months, and after that it's very slow. But at that time, everything was very slow. Even that initial 6-month period all the progress was very slow. And I was in the hospital that I had the surgery for about a month or 2 weeks, and then I was transferred to a rehab hospital where I stayed for about a month. And when I was there, I still wasn't able to drink because I couldn't pass the swallow test. But I still did speech therapy and physical therapy and occupational therapy, but I couldn't do a lot. My stamina was not there. And when I did speech therapy, I remember that it was at a very low level, because I couldn't do a whole lot. I relied really heavily on physical fitness for my mental health and my mental well-being, and to go from absolutely everything to absolutely nothing was very difficult. I did what I could, but it wasn't a lot, and I did keep some of the same mindset when I was doing my physical therapy. After about 3 weeks, I was starting to get some of my stamina back, and I kept pushing myself, and I kept that mindset to keep pushing myself. And that definitely transferred over to my therapy, and it still does today. But it was very defeating. I think about for the first year or so, I was not really able to do what I wanted, obviously, and I just didn't have it was a bit foggy in my brain, and I wasn't able to properly think about. I mentioned that my family said, you just have to keep pushing, and that didn't fully register with me. And when it did, it was about a year or so after my surgery, and then everything slowly started to come back to me. My mindset now is that I definitely don't like being like this, but I know that the only way to get better is to keep pushing myself and working as hard as I can, and I definitely do that. I think that the surgery changed my mindset in the sense that I'm way more empathetic now, and not that it wasn't beforehand, but I definitely am way more so now. And I think that through this whole journey, I started documenting my recovery on social media, and I've met a lot of people that are in medical situations similar to mine, and it's been very helpful to me in my journey. And a lot of people, I feel like they don't know what's possible, they don't know what they're capable of until they see someone else do it. So if that's what my mission is here on Earth, then that's great. In the beginning of my journey, like the first about year or so, I was majorly depressed. Even though I was depressed, I still did all my physical therapy. I still did everything I could. I was still working, but I was like, I had that thought of like, why me? And I didn't think that something like this could happen to me. And I definitely was having pity party, and I don't think anyone would blame me for having pity party. But I think I realized about a year and a half, year in, that it really doesn't matter if I want to have a pity party. Some days I want to, some days I'm sad, but the only way to the other side of this is to work hard and keep my spirits as high as possible. It's so difficult to explain what it feels like to not be able to walk, and I think the most frustrating thing is like in the middle of the night when I have to get up and use the restroom. It takes me forever. I have to get up, which is a struggle. I have to get my walker, I have to get my balance, and it takes me like a minute to walk there, and that is like the most frustrating thing. And in the beginning, I was on an antidepressant, which definitely helped, but I still had sad days, and days where I was cranky, and days where I just didn't want to talk to anyone. I just wanted to sit in bed and watch funny TV and try and forget about everything. But no matter how long I did that for, I still had this affliction. I still had this to deal with, and I still have those sad days. They're few and far between, but I get right back to work because I know that the only way to the other side is to work as hard as I can. I definitely consider myself a survivor because I went through a situation where I had my surgery and I survived it, and I'm still here and I'm still fighting. And when I talk to other people and they say it's hard or it hurts or whatever, I have all those experiences also. And it doesn't matter how hard it is or how much it hurts. It's gonna hurt worse if you don't try. And there are a lot of people that I've come in contact with through my journey that don't try as hard as I do. And they see the progress I'm making. They're able to see it, not me. And they ask me how I do it. And there is no secret. There is no magic pill. There's no, secret exercise or anything. It's just hard work and willpower. And there is no way to the other side besides hard work. And I found that out. And once I found that out, I was like, I just ran with it. There's no other way to fix the situation. It happened. It's done. These are the cards I was dealt. And it's up to me whether I want to fix it or not. That part is up to me. The part where it happened is not up to me.